like the New York Times, like NBC News, Donald Trump has targeted the Wall Street Journal specifically. Here's one time in South Carolina in the middle of the primary campaign.
I'm not a believer in the Wall Street Journal. I think it's a piece of garbage. It's going to lose a fortune anyway. Don't worry. It'll be out of business like all the rest of them very soon. But
obviously filled with hyperbole and sarcasm. How did you handle the direct attacks?
You know, you have to get used to it, Chuck. You get used to the, you know, those kind of attacks. You get used to this kind of strange, tough love that sort of Donald Trump kind of, his modus operandi for dealing with the press. He'd say exactly things like that, and he'd attack our reporters individually. He'd attack anything we'd done, anything he didn't like. And then at the same time, you also know how much he actually reads the newspaper or watches TV.
It was interesting. There was I guess, a leaked memo where you went to the newsroom and you said, re-emphasizing, everybody's got to be fair to him. Were you concerned that the personal attacks were going to make some of your reporters react? They're human. We're all human beings. And when you personally get attacked, it's hard to sort of set that aside. Were you concerned about that?
I was concerned about that. Look, I think it's certainly true that Donald Trump is has been a different kind of candidate, presumably will be a different kind of president. He operates outside the mainstream. He says things that are challengeable, to put it mildly, that are questionable. And I think a lot of reporters feel that somehow feel very much that they are part of that they're in the contest, really, and that it's their job to take him on. And of course, it's reporters' job to take everybody on in the sense to provide, to test everything that a politician says against the truth. But I was concerned, and it was Chuck, things like Twitter. I mean, a lot of our reporters, your reporters too, your colleagues, tweet the whole time. Social media has become such an important part of it. And they would go beyond the reporting of a story.
It became like a bar conversation.
Yeah. They'd offer their commentary on a story on Twitter. And I was concerned, look, you're entitled to your own views about Donald Trump. You're entitled to your own views about Hillary Clinton. But, our readers, it's about trust. If our readers see that you're saying scathing things about Donald Trump on Twitter, or they hear you on TV saying things in a commentary way that appear to be very critical and hostile to Donald Trump, they're not going to trust what you write. Even when you're writing, you absolutely write fairly, you report fairly, but if they think that you're coming from a position, they're not going to trust you. So I was very concerned that we be seen to be fair, we be fair to all candidates, and we not be seen to be out there kind of engaged in the political debate. And I do think one of the problems with trust in this country is that for a very long time, people have seen news presented by news organisations in a way that they think is unfair. It's no accident. There's the old joke about Fox News when Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes started Fox News 20 years ago, that they said, they were catering for a niche audience, and it turns out the niche is 50%, right? That people were unhappy with the mainstream media, whether it was newspapers, television, or whatever, so they did see an opportunity.
Yeah, the issue of facts. People always say, you got to fact check. But sometimes there isn't an agreement on what the facts are. And this is yet another challenge for you and everybody here. Do you feel comfortable saying so-and-so lied? To be if somebody says just an outright falsehood, do you say the word lie? Is that important to start putting in reporting or not?
I'd be careful about using the word lie. Lie implies much more than just saying something that's false. It implies a deliberate intent to mislead. I think it's perfectly... When Donald Trump says thousands of people were on the rooftops of New Jersey on 9/11 celebrating, thousands of Muslims were there celebrating, I think it's right to investigate that claim, to report what we found, which is that nobody found any evidence of that whatsoever, and to say that. I think it's then up to the reader to make up their own mind, to say, this is what Donald Trump says, this is what a reliable, trustworthy news organisation reports, and you know what? I don't think that's true. I think if you start ascribing a moral intent, as it were, to someone by saying that they've lied, I think you run the risk that you look like you're not being objective. And I think, and I do think also it applies. Look, people, this is happening all the time now. Right. People are looking at what Donald Trump's saying and say this is false. It's a false claim. And I think people say, well, you know what? Hillary Clinton said a lot of things that were false. I don't recall the press being quite so concerned about saying that she lied when in headlines or in stories like that.
All right, if you could wave a magic wand and you became sort of the arbiter of what the relationship of the press corps should be with powerful people in Washington and Wall Street, what would you change?
I think that it's interesting. I think it's a little too deferential. Going back to what you said, Chuck, about the British media. Again, the British media have lots of flaws, and I wouldn't want to replicate what the British media do here. They're great. They have a slightly kind of, they have a much edgier approach. There are many things that I don't like about the British press, but there is certainly a lack of deference. And I think if you take any of the way in which the media cover stories, I think there is in this country still a slight sense, and it's understandable because the presidency itself is an institution of state. It's very important. It's very much a part of the constitutional arrangement, and I think there is a sense that people have some kind of deference towards it. I think there needs to be a little less deference, a little less insider behaviour, a little less coziness that there's been sometimes between the media and the major political institutions.
Yeah, I agree on that too. Gerard Baker, Editor-in-Chief of the Wall Street Journal.
Great
conversation. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Chuck. Happy New Year.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.